Blood trickled from the corner of Megan Carson's split lip running down her chin in a thin crimson line. The evening Montana sun cast long shadows across her face as she stood bound to the wooden fence post, zip ties cutting into her wrists. But her eyes showed no fear, only a cold, calculating patience. The rumble of Harley-Davidson engines circled around her like predatory wolves, their chrome parts catching the dying sunlight. 5 motorcycles, 10 men, all wearing the same leather cuts with the snarling scarlet serpent patch. Victor Viper Reeves dismounted his bike, his weathered face creased with a triumphant smile. The former Delta Force operator, now outlaw biker leader, strode towards Megan, unsheathing a hunting knife. He pressed the cold steel against her cheek. "Your husband thinks he's who exactly?" John Wick Viper laughed, his breath reeking of whiskey and menace. Megan's lips curled into an unexpected smile. "No," she replied, her voice steady despite the blood on her teeth. "He's far more dangerous than that." From the darkness beyond the fence line came a voice deep, calm, and terrifying in its certainty. "My wife is right about that." Desert Storm, Iraq. January 1990. The sand bit into Cole Shepard's face as he crawled on his belly across the desert floor. At 21, the young Army Ranger had already seen more combat than most soldiers twice his age. Sweat stung his eyes as he peered through night vision goggles, tracking the Iraqi bunker 200 yards ahead. Behind him, 3 other Rangers moved silently following his lead. The radio crackled in his ear. "Sandman, this is Overlord. Enemy reinforcements inbound. Extract Miller now or abort over." Cole keyed his mic. "Overlord, this is Sandman. Negative on abort. We're getting our boy back." Captain Frank Miller had been separated from their unit during an ambush 18 hours earlier. Intelligence located him in this bunker, likely being interrogated. The brass wanted to abort, but Cole wouldn't leave a man behind. Never had, never would. The M16A2 rifle felt natural in his hands, its weight a comfort in the alien landscape. First-generation night vision bathed the world in an eerie green glow, technology that seemed miraculous then, but would be considered primitive by today's standards. Cole's fingertips brushed the block of C4 explosive in his vest pocket, the timer unit secured beside it. He signaled his team to hold position. He removed the block of C4, setting the timer. The diversionary explosion would hit the north side while they'd breach from the east. Simple plan, dangerous execution. Cole's hand signals to his team were precise, economical movements that conveyed complex tactical information without sound. The Rangers moved like ghosts, their desert camouflage blending with the sand. Each man carried an identical kit, ammunition, medical supplies, extraction gear, but Cole carried the additional burden of command, of knowing that every decision determined whether his men lived or died. 45 minutes later, as dawn broke over the Iraqi desert, Cole carried Captain Miller on his shoulders across the extraction point as helicopter rotors chopped the air above them. Miller had 2 broken legs, 3 cracked ribs, and had been beaten nearly unconscious, but he was alive. As the helicopter lifted off, Miller gripped Cole's arm. "Shepard," he croaked, "I owe you my life." Cole simply nodded. "Just doing my job, sir." Clearwater Valley, Montana, May 2025. The memory faded as Cole's weathered hands tightened a stubborn bolt on the old John Deere tractor. 34 years had passed since that morning in Iraq, but the lessons stayed with him. Never leave anyone behind, always prepare for the worst, and most importantly, remain calm under pressure. At 55, Cole Shepard looked every bit the Montana rancher. His 6'2" frame remained powerful despite the years, though his dark hair had given way to salt and pepper gray. His face, tanned and lined from outdoor work, retained the watchful eyes of a man who'd seen combat across 3 continents. The John Deere 4020, a relic from the 1970s that Cole refused to replace, had thrown a belt again. He preferred its mechanical simplicity, the way he could diagnose and fix problems with his own hands, unlike the computerized machines that dominated modern farming. There was honesty in its design, a straightforward relationship between cause and effect that reminded him of simpler times. The old radio on his workbench crackled with the local AM station, and in regional news, authorities in Idaho and western Montana report increased activity from the Scarlet Serpents Motorcycle Club. The group, classified by federal authorities as an outlaw motorcycle gang involved in weapons trafficking and drug distribution, appears to be expanding territory eastward from their traditional stronghold near Coeur d'Alene. Sheriff's departments advise residents to report any suspicious activity. Cole's hands paused on the wrench. He'd been tracking news of the Scarlet Serpents for weeks now. Their movement into Montana concerned him, though he hadn't shared those concerns with Megan yet. No need to worry her until necessary. He straightened, stretching his back as he surveyed his property through the open barn door. 200 acres of Clearwater Valley stretched before him. 50 acres of hay fields, 30 of organic vegetables that Megan managed, 40 of grazing land for their modest herd of grass-fed cattle, and the rest forest that climbed the hillside behind their two-story farmhouse. The property wasn't the biggest in the valley, but its location made it special. Nestled against the foothills with Clearwater Creek running through it, the farm commanded the valley's narrowest point, effectively controlling the only practical access to several thousand acres of remote wilderness that extended to the Canadian border. That geographical fact hadn't seemed important when they purchased the place 3 years ago. Now, with rumors of scarlet serpents expanding into Montana, Cole wondered if their isolated paradise might become a strategic liability. The crunch of boots on gravel pulled Cole from his thoughts. Megan approached carrying 2 mugs, her auburn hair caught in the late afternoon sunlight. "Thought you might need some fuel," she said, handing him a steaming cup of coffee. At 38, Megan Carson Shepard remained strikingly beautiful. Her PhD in agricultural biology had taken a back seat when they'd moved from Seattle to pursue this simpler life, but her scientific mind remained sharp as ever. Her green eyes missed nothing, including her husband's momentary distraction. "You heard the news about those bikers?" she asked, leaning against the tractor. Cole nodded, sipping the coffee. "Just noise on the radio." "You get that same look you had when we heard about those wildfires last summer," Megan observed. "The one that says you are planning for contingencies." Cole smiled. 12 years of marriage, and she could read him like an open book. "Old habits," he said. "Probably nothing to worry about." Megan hummed, unconvinced. "Well, while you're fixing this dinosaur, I made fresh apple pie." Ruth Wilson dropped off a basket of last season's stored Honey Crisps from their cellar. "How's Jacob doing?" Cole asked, thinking of the Wilsons' 16-year-old son. "Still hoping you'll teach him to drive the tractor," Megan smiled. "Ruth says he talks about you constantly. You've made quite an impression." Cole nodded. The boy had lost his father in Afghanistan 6 years ago. Since the Shepherds had moved in, Cole had taken Jacob under his wing, teaching him everything from fixing engines to tracking deer. "Tell him to come by Saturday," Cole said. "Tractor should be running by then." Megan nodded, then gestured to the distant fields. "I'm heading back to check on the irrigation system." "Dinner at 6. "I'll be there," Cole promised, watching his wife walk away in her confident stride, carrying her across the gravel driveway toward their organic vegetable plots. 3 years in Montana had been good for them both. After 20 years in Delta Force, Cole's transition to civilian life hadn't been easy. The nightmares, the hypervigilance, the struggle to find purpose outside the brotherhood of elite warriors all had taken their toll. Megan had stood by him through it all, never wavering, always believing in the man beneath the soldier. The farm had become their sanctuary, a place to heal, to build something with their hands, to remember what they were fighting for all those years. Cole only hoped it would stay that way. As evening shadows lengthened across the valley, Cole made his way to the old horse stable at the far edge of the property. The wooden structure, weathered by decades of Montana winters, housed no horses, just farm equipment, feed and supplies, and secrets. Cole slid the heavy barn door closed behind him, engaging the custom lock he'd installed. Moving to the back wall, he shifted a seemingly immovable feed rack, revealing a keypad hidden behind. His fingers danced across the numbers. Megan's birthday in reverse, followed by their anniversary date. The false wall swung inward silently, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. Motion sensors detected his presence, illuminating LED lights along the stairway. 20 feet below ground level, Cole entered a room that would have shocked anyone who knew him only as the quiet farmer from Clearwater Valley. The reinforced concrete bunker, approximately 30 feet square, represented everything he'd brought from his former life. Cole pressed his right thumb against a biometric scanner mounted on a gun safe. The heavy door swung open, revealing an arsenal that would impress most military units: an M4A1 carbine with a AKOG sight, a Remington 700 sniper rifle, several Sig Sauer P226 handguns, and a Benelli M4 tactical shotgun. Each weapon was meticulously maintained, cleaned weekly, whether fired or not. But it wasn't the weapons that drew Cole's attention tonight. It was the steel lockbox on the bottom shelf. The box contained no weapons, only memories. Cole lifted it onto a nearby workbench and entered another combination. Inside lay the physical remnants of his former life. His service medals, including a silver star and 3 Purple Hearts, photographs of teams he had served with, and his official Delta Force identification now deactivated but preserved as a reminder. He shuffled through the photographs, pausing at one taken in Afghanistan 2001. 6 men in combat gear stood before a helicopter, faces grimy but triumphant after a successful mission. Cole's finger traced the faces. Martinez killed in action 2004. Williams now working private security in Dubai. Patterson Doc practicing medicine in Missoula. His finger moved to himself, looking impossibly young despite the heavy responsibility of command. And at the end, Victor Viper Reeves. The photograph had been taken before Viper changed, before the bloodlust consumed him, before Syria. Cole pulled out another photo, this one from 2015, a classified operation in northern Syria targeting an ISIS commander. The mission had gone sideways when Viper disobeyed orders, slaughtering civilians he claimed were collaborators. No evidence supported his claim. When the military investigation began, Cole had done the hardest thing in his career, testifying against a brother in arms. Viper had been court-martialed, dishonorably discharged, and sentenced to 10 years in military prison. He'd served 7 before being released on good behavior, a concept Cole found laughable given what he knew of the man. And now Viper led the Scarlet Serpents, expanding into Montana, into Cole's backyard. Coincidence? Cole didn't believe in coincidences. The soft sound of the bunker door opening broke his reverie. Only one other person knew about this place. "I thought I might find you down here," Megan said, descending the stairs. Cole quickly returned the photos to the lockbox, but not before Megan glimpsed them. "Afghanistan?" she asked. "And Syria," Cole answered, locking the box. Megan moved beside him, laying a hand on his arm. "You're worried about these Scarlet Serpents." It wasn't a question, Cole nodded, turning to the bank of surveillance monitors mounted on the far wall. 6 screens showed different angles of their property: the driveway entrance, the main house, the barn, the equipment shed, the cattle pasture, and the forest line. "I've activated the perimeter sensors," Cole said, pointing to a digital map of their property where green dots indicated motion and heat detectors placed strategically around the farm. "And I've checked all the cameras. Everything's operational." Megan studied the setup, her scientific mind quickly grasping the defensive strategy. "This is more than just general caution," she observed. "What aren't you telling me?" Cole sighed. Megan deserved the truth, always had. "The leader of the Scarlet Serpents," he said quietly. "Victor Reeves. We called him Viper. He served with me in Delta." Megan's eyes widened. "The one from Syria, the war criminal." Cole nodded. "The timing of their movement into Montana so close to us, I don't think it's random." "You think he knows we're here?" "Our name isn't exactly common. Shepherd Farm would be easy to spot on a map, especially for someone motivated to look." Megan considered this information, her mind already calculating implications and contingencies, one of the many reasons Cole had fallen in love with her. She didn't panic, she processed. "What's our exposure?" she asked, using the tactical terminology she'd learned from years of marriage to a Delta operator. "Limited for now," Cole replied. "The house is positioned well, clear sight lines in all directions. We have surveillance, early warning systems, and enough supplies to withstand a siege if necessary." "And defensive capabilities?" Megan asked, glancing toward the gun safe. "Sufficient," Cole said simply. Megan nodded, processing. Then she crossed to another cabinet, opened it with a key from her pocket, and removed a custom Glock 19. "I should start carrying again," she said, checking the weapon with practiced ease. Cole had trained her thoroughly over the years, insisting she learn to protect herself during his frequent deployments. "Hopefully unnecessary," Cole said, "but yes, not a bad precaution." Megan returned the weapon to its holster. "Should we alert Sheriff Davis?" Cole considered the question. Roger Davis, Riverford's sheriff for over 15 years, was a good man, former Marine, honest, dedicated to the community. But explaining why an outlaw motorcycle gang might specifically target their farm would require revealing Cole's past, something he had avoided since moving to Montana. "Not yet," Cole decided. "Let's gather more information first. If they're just passing through the area, alerting authorities might create problems where none exist." Megan nodded, trusting his judgment in matters of security. And if they're not just passing through, Cole's eyes hardened. Then we'll be ready. He secured the bunker behind them as they returned to the main house. Neither spoke much during dinner, both processing the implications of Viper's possible return to their lives. Later that night, as Megan slept beside him, Cole stared at the ceiling, mapping contingencies in his mind. The peaceful life they'd built in Montana had always seemed like a dream, perhaps too good to be true. Cole had learned the hard way that peace came with a price, and sometimes that price was eternal vigilance. He would not be caught unprepared, not with Megan's safety at stake. As midnight approached, Cole reached for the small, worn Bible on his nightstand, a gift from his grandfather when he'd first enlisted. He hadn't been particularly religious during his military years, but since leaving the service, he'd found a quiet comfort in the familiar verses. The ancient words about resilience, protection, and standing firm against evil seemed written for moments exactly like this. He read silently for several minutes, finding strength not in promises of divine intervention, but in the timeless wisdom of enduring hardship with dignity and purpose. Riverford, Montana existed in a time warp that most of America had long forgotten. With just 2,000 residents, the town served as the commercial hub for ranchers and farmers scattered across Clearwater County. Main Street featured no Starbucks or McDonald's, just locally owned businesses that had served the community for generations. Megan parked her faded blue 1997 Ford F-150 in front of Miller's General Store, a two-story brick building that had anchored Riverford since 1952. The bell above the door jingled as she entered, greeted by the comforting scent of coffee, leather, wood smoke. Frank Miller, 73 years old and spry as a man 20 years younger, looked up from the counter where he was stocking fishing lures. "Megan Shepard, how's that organic operation coming along?" he called out, adjusting glasses that perpetually slid down his nose. "Spring planting's on a schedule," Megan replied, grabbing a shopping basket. "Those heirloom tomato seeds you ordered came up beautifully." The store embodied everything Megan had come to love about rural Montana after years in Seattle's academic world. A vintage Coca-Cola cooler hummed in the corner, filled with glass bottles made with real sugar. Handwritten price tags adorned most items. The bulletin board near the register featured everything from farm equipment for sale to announcements for the high school's spring dance. Most remarkably, the weekly Riverford Gazette sat in a stack by the register, an actual printed newspaper in an age when most local journalism had vanished into the digital ether. Megan gathered supplies, flour, coffee, fishing line for Cole, and veterinary supply for their spring calves. As she browsed, she overheard conversations among the locals. At least 15 of them at the Pinnery Motel. Mrs. Langford, the retired school teacher, whispered to Betty Wilson Jacobs' grandmother. "All those motorcycles lined up outside. Sheriff Davis drove by 3 times yesterday." "My Ernest says they were in the watering hole last night," Betty replied, paying with $100 bills and asking questions about properties for sale in the valley. Megan selected a can of WD-40, pretending not to eavesdrop while absorbing every detail. "Reminds me of that movie," Frank Miller interjected, joining the conversation. "You know, Easy Rider, except these fellows don't look like they're searching for America. More like trying to claim a piece of it." "Things change," Mrs. Langford sighed. "When Harold and I moved here in '72, you never worried about locking your doors. Now we've got big city problems creeping in." Megan approached the counter with her selections. Frank began ringing up her purchases. "Couldn't help overhearing about the visitors at the Pinnery," she said casually. Frank nodded, his expression growing serious. "Scarlet Serpent's Motorcycle Club. Not the kind of tourism we need." He trailed off, gesturing helplessly. The sheriff's department consisted of Davis and 3 deputies covering over 900 square miles of county. Resources were limited. "They causing trouble?" Megan asked. "Not yet," Frank replied, bagging her purchases. "But Ernest wasn't wrong. They're asking about property, specifically remote places with good road access, but plenty of privacy." A description that fit the Shepherd farm perfectly. The bell above the door jingled again as Sheriff Roger Davis entered. At 63, the former Marine still cut an imposing figure, 6 foot tall, barrel-chested, with a silver crew cut and perpetually evaluating eyes. "Morning, Frank, ladies." He nodded to the group. "Megan got a minute?" Outside on the wooden sidewalk, Davis spoke quietly. "Notice you and Cole haven't been to town much lately. Everything all right out at your place?" "Just busy with spring planting," Megan replied. "Why do you ask?" Davis removed his hat, running a hand over his crew cut, a gesture Megan had learned indicated concern. Got some rough characters at the Pinery. Probably nothing, but they've been asking about properties in the valley. Someone mentioned your place specifically. Megan felt a chill despite the warm spring morning. Who mentioned us? Harvey Collins. Megan frowned. Harvey owned the parcel bordering their northern fence line, 500 acres of poorly managed ranch land he'd been trying to sell for years. He'd approached Cole twice about buying him out, receiving polite refusals each time. Harvey showing them properties? Megan asked. Davis nodded. Says they're interested in establishing a clubhouse. I'm thinking it's more than that. The sheriff leaned closer. Megan, I don't mean to alarm you, but these aren't weekend warriors playing biker. Federal database flags the Scarlet Serpents for drug trafficking, weapons distribution, and violent crimes across 3 states. I appreciate the warning, Megan said. I'll let Cole know. Davis settled his hat back on his head. You folks need anything you call. Don't care what time, day or night. Megan thanked him, loaded her purchases into the truck, and headed home mind racing. Cole's concerns about Viper weren't paranoia, they were justified. As she drove the winding road toward their farm, Megan noticed a black pickup following at a distance. It maintained the same gap regardless of her speed, staying just far enough back to avoid seeming obvious. 20 minutes later, as she turned onto the gravel drive leading to their farm, the pickup continued past. Megan caught a glimpse of 2 men inside, both wearing leather vests with patches she couldn't distinguish. They didn't need to follow her home. They already knew exactly where she lived. Cole knelt beside the disassembled carburetor, pointing to the float valve. See how it's worn here? That's why you're getting too much fuel in the mixture. Engine runs rich waste, gas fouls the plugs. Jacob Wilson nodded, his lanky 16-year-old frame hunched forward in concentration. The boy's sandy hair fell across earnest blue eyes as he absorbed every word. Can we fix it, or do we need a new one? Jacob asked. We can rebuild it, Cole replied. Carburetors are simple machines once you understand the principles. Hand me that gasket kit. For 2 hours, they had worked together on the 1978 Ford tractor that Jacob's mother Ruth used on their small farm. The boy was a quick study, mechanically inclined, with good hands and better questions. Cole saw much of himself at that age in Jacob before the Army and war had reshaped his life. My dad would have known how to fix this, Jacob said quietly, handing Cole a small screwdriver. Cole paused, choosing his words carefully. Your father was a good man, good soldier too. You knew him, Jacob looked up surprised. We crossed paths in Afghanistan 2011. Different units, but same forward operating base for a few weeks. Cole's voice softened. He talked about you constantly, showed everyone your picture. Cole didn't mention that he'd been running classified operations while Staff Sergeant Wilson had been with conventional forces. Some details remained best unshared. I don't remember much about him, Jacob admitted. I was 10 when he died. The best parts of him live on in you, Cole said simply. That mechanical mind, the way you analyze problems. He'd be proud of the young man you're becoming. The boy straightened slightly, pride momentarily overcoming teenage awkwardness. The moment was interrupted by the distant rumble of motorcycles approaching on the gravel drive. Cole stood wiping his hands on a shop rag, his posture subtly shifting from mentor to guardian. Jacob, I need you to do something for me. Cole set his tone, making it clear this wasn't a request. Go into the house through the back door, find Megan in the garden, and stay with her. Don't come out until I come get you. The boy's eyes widened, but he nodded without question, sensing the sudden tension. He slipped out the side door of the workshop as 5 motorcycles pulled up in front of the main house, followed by a black pickup truck. Cole stepped out of the workshop, deliberately unhurried, surveying the new arrivals with a rancher's apparent casual interest. Inside, however, his mind had shifted to combat assessment. 7 men, total 5 on bikes, 2 from the truck, all wearing Scarlet Serpents cuts. 4 carried visible sidearms. The others likely armed as well. The lead rider dismounted, a tall man in his early 50s with a silver-streaked beard and the weathered complexion of someone who'd spent years in harsh climates. His leather cut bore additional patches, marking him as president of the Scarlet Serpents Montana chapter. Though 20 years had passed and prison had added lines to his face, Cole instantly recognized Victor Viper Reeves. If Viper recognized Cole, he didn't show it. Instead, he approached with the confident swagger of a man accustomed to intimidating others. Afternoon, Viper called out. Looking for the owner of this property. You found him, Cole replied evenly, stepping forward. Cole Shepard, something I can help you with. Viper smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. Victor Reeves, my friends call me Viper. He gestured to the surrounding landscape. Beautiful piece of land you've got here, Shepard. How many acres? 200 give or take, Cole answered, maintaining the facade of a simple conversation between strangers. Prime location too, Viper continued. Controls the whole valley entrance. Strategic, you might say. The word choice wasn't accidental. Viper was sending a message. It suits our needs, Cole replied. My wife and I aren't looking to sell if that's why you're here. Viper laughed, a sound without warmth. Direct. I appreciate that. He gestured to the black pickup. Harvey Collins mentioned you might not be interested, but I figured an in-person offer might change your mind. One of the men from the truck approached carrying a briefcase. Viper took it, popped it open, and turned it toward Cole, revealing stacks of $100 bills. 2 million cash, Viper said. Double the market value, I'm told. No banks, no paperwork, no questions. You and the missus could start fresh anywhere you want. Cole regarded the money impassively. Like I said, we're not selling. Viper's smile tightened. Maybe you should discuss it with your wife before deciding. Women tend to see the practical side of things. I believe my husband already gave you our answer. Megan's voice came from behind Cole. She stood on the porch, arms crossed, her posture radiating confidence despite being outnumbered. Cole silently cursed. He'd wanted her safely away with Jacob. Viper's eyes tracked to Megan, his gaze lingering inappropriately. Mrs. Shepard, I presume. He gestured to the briefcase. 2 million reasons to consider a change of scenery. Not interested, Megan replied coolly. Our farm isn't for sale, not at any price. Viper closed the briefcase, handing it back to his associate. His demeanor shifted subtly, the false friendliness giving way to something harder. People's situations change, he remarked. Farming is a risky business. Equipment breaks down, accidents happen, animals get sick. His eyes narrowed. Sometimes even people get sick. Life gets complicated real quick. The threat hung in the air, unmistakable despite its oblique delivery. Cole stepped forward, positioning himself between Viper and the porch where Megan stood. I think we're done here, he said quietly. His tone had changed, no longer the polite farmer, but something colder, more dangerous, a tone Viper would recognize from their shared past. Something flickered in Viper's eyes, a moment of uncertainty, perhaps even recognition. He studied Cole's face more carefully. For now, Viper agreed, mounting his motorcycle. But think it over, Shepard. Offer won't stay open forever. The bikers started their engines, the thunderous roar shattering the farm's tranquility. As they turned to leave, Viper called out one final comment. Nice meeting you, Shepard. You seem familiar somehow. Ever served National Guard, maybe? Nothing exciting, Cole lied smoothly. Viper nodded, clearly unconvinced. Funny thing about the past, it has a way of catching up to everyone eventually. The motorcycles roared away, the black pickup following behind. Cole watched until they disappeared down the gravel drive, then turned to Megan. Jacob. Safe with Ruth. I called her when I saw them arriving. Megan descended the porch steps, joining Cole in the yard. That was him, wasn't it, Viper? Cole nodded grimly. He didn't recognize me immediately, but he will. It's been 20 years and beards change appearances, but he'll figure it out. He threatened us, Megan said. Not very subtly either. This isn't about the farm, Cole concluded. It's about location and access to that wilderness corridor to Canada, perfect for drug running, weapons trafficking, all the Scarlet Serpent specialties. Megan took Cole's hand, her grip firm. What's our next move? We prepare, Cole answered simply, and we find out exactly what Viper is planning. Darkness had fallen by the time Cole and Megan finished securing the farmhouse. After confirming Jacob had arrived safely home, they retreated to the kitchen table with mugs of coffee, the cheerful yellow walls at odds with the gravity of their conversation. Tell me everything about Viper, Megan said. No redactions this time. Cole nodded. The classified nature of their operations had always limited what he could share, but circumstances had changed. Megan needed the complete picture to understand the threat they faced. We served in Delta together for 6 years, Cole began. Viper was one of the best operators I'd ever seen. Incredible instincts, perfect shot under pressure, fearless, the kind of man you wanted beside you when everything went sideways. Cole's gaze drifted to the window, memory surfacing. Something changed around 2012. We were running constant missions in Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, places where the lines between combatant and civilian blurred. Viper started developing his own definitions of acceptable collateral damage. Megan listened intently, her scientific mind cataloging details. What happened in Syria, the incident you testified about? Cole's jaw tightened. 2015. Classified operation targeting an ISIS commander in a village near the Turkish border. Our intelligence confirmed the target would be meeting local contacts in a specific building. Viper was team lead. I was second in command. He paused, the memory still raw despite the years. We infiltrated successfully, but the target never showed. Viper became convinced the villagers had warned him off. He ordered the team to round up the men for questioning. When I objected, he told me to secure the perimeter instead. Cole's hands tightened around his coffee mug. I heard the shots 15 minutes later. By the time I got back, he'd executed 12 men. Claimed they were all ISIS sympathizers. There was no evidence, no justification, just Viper's certainty that they were guilty. My God, Megan whispered. I reported it up the chain, testified at his court-martial. He got 10 years in Leavenworth in a dishonorable discharge. Cole's expression darkened. Should have been life, but the military wanted to avoid publicity about a Delta operator gone rogue. They buried most of the details. And now he's free, leading a biker gang, and has found you, Megan summarized. Do you think he recognized you today? Not immediately, Cole answered. 20 years changes a person. My beard, the weight I've gained since leaving service, the context of meeting a farmer in Montana instead of an operator in a war zone, it threw him off. But he sensed something familiar. He'll figure it out soon enough. Then what? Best case, he decides confronting me isn't worth the trouble and moves their operation elsewhere. Cole's tone made clear how unlikely he considered this outcome. In worst case, Megan pressed, he decides to settle old scores while establishing their smuggling route. Megan processed this information with the same methodical approach she applied to her scientific research. We need intelligence, and we need to prepare defenses. Cole nodded, impressed as always by his wife's clarity under pressure. I've already reached out to some contacts. Viper spent 7 years in Leavenworth before getting paroled on good behavior. Within months, he connected with the Scarlet Serpents in Idaho. Rose through their ranks quickly, too quickly for a newcomer, unless he brought valuable skills or connections. What kind of resources would they have? Megan asked. Manpower, probably 30 to 40 members in this region. Firearms, certainly, though, they'd keep most hidden to avoid obvious weapons charges. Tactical experience varies. Some are just criminals with motorcycles, but Viper would have recruited veterans, probably dishonorable discharges with combat experience and few employment options. Cole stood pacing the kitchen. They'll have money from their operations connections to larger criminal networks and the advantage of mobility. What they lack is our knowledge of the terrain and defensive positioning. He turned to Megan. We should consider leaving, taking the money and disappearing. Megan's expression hardened. This is our home, Cole. We spent years building this life. I'm not running because some sociopath with a grudge decided to show up. Staying means potential conflict, Cole warned. Violence. Everything we came here to escape. We came here to build something that matters, Megan corrected him. Something worth defending. She reached for his hand. Besides, if Viper is establishing a drug corridor through this valley, what happens to Riverford, to Jacob and Ruth Wilson, to all the people who've welcomed us? Cole recognized the determination in her eyes, the same look she'd given him 12 years ago when he tried to talk her out of marrying a Delta operator with PTSD and an unpredictable deployment schedule. All right, he conceded. We stay and prepare, but if things escalate beyond our ability to manage safely, we reassess. Megan nodded. Fair enough. Where do we start? Cole led her to the study where he unrolled detailed topographical maps of their property and the surrounding area. First, we enhanced security, he explained, marking key points on the map. I'll activate the full sensor network around the perimeter motion and heat detection at all approach vectors. Camera coverage expanded to the entrance road and back forest line. His finger traced the boundaries of their land. We'll need fallback positions, emergency supplies cached at strategic locations, and rally points in case we get separated. Megan studied the defenses, then looked up. Show me the weapons again, the ones I'll need to handle. For the next hour, Cole walked Megan through their defensive arsenal. Though she'd maintained basic proficiency with firearms throughout their marriage, Cole now pushed her through advanced drills, weapon transitions, shooting from cover, tactical reloads under pressure. Megan executed each drill with surprising precision, her movements economical and effective. You've been practicing, Cole observed. Every week while you were in town, Megan admitted. I used the range in the bunker. Figured it was a skill worth maintaining. Cole nodded appreciatively. In their 12 years together, Megan had never ceased to amaze him. Her resilience, intelligence, and adaptability had seen them through his darkest periods after leaving service. Now those same qualities might help them survive Viper's return. As midnight approached, they finalized their immediate security enhancements. Cole would contact former teammates, tomorrow men he trusted with his life, who might provide additional support. Megan would research the Scarlet Serpents' known patterns and territorial markers, looking for weaknesses in their organization. We should get some sleep, Cole suggested. Tomorrow we'll be busy. As they prepared for bed, Megan paused by the window, looking out at the moonlit valley. Do you regret it? She asked quietly. Testifying against Viper, knowing what it's led to, Cole considered the question carefully. No, he finally answered. Those villagers deserve justice. Viper betrayed everything the uniform stands for. I couldn't live with myself if I'd stayed silent. Megan turned from the window, embracing him. That's why I fell in love with you. Your moral compass doesn't waver even when the path is difficult. Cole held her close, inhaling the lavender scent of her hair, drawing strength from her certainty. Get some sleep, he murmured. I'll take first watch. Long after Megan had fallen asleep, Cole sat in the darkened living room, rifle across his lap, watching the security monitors. The peaceful Montana night revealed nothing unusual, but experience had taught him that threats often materialize when least expected. Viper was out there planning his next move. Cole would be ready when it came. Dawn broke clear and cold over Clearwater Valley, painting the snow-capped mountains with golden light. Cole, who had slept only 3 hours after Megan insisted on taking the second watch, stood on the porch with a steaming mug of coffee, surveying their land with tactical eyes. The farm that had represented peace for 3 years now revealed its defensive vulnerabilities. The long driveway offering limited cover, the barn positioned too far from the house for quick access, the cattle pastures creating open ground that would be difficult to cross under fire. His satellite phone buzzed in his pocket, the secure line few people had access to. Shepard, he answered tersely. Cole, you magnificent bastard, still raising hell in retirement. Despite the circumstances, Cole smiled. Doc, good to hear your voice. Dr. Marcus Doc Patterson, Doc, to his former Delta teammates, had served as their unit's medic for 15 years before retiring to practice emergency medicine in Missoula, just 2 hours from Cole's farm. Your message said urgent but secure. Doc continued, his tone shifting to business. What's the situation? Viper is back, Cole replied simply. Silence stretched for several seconds before Doc responded. Viper Reeves, I thought he was still in Leavenworth. Paroled, leading the Scarlet Serpents MC now. They're moving into Clearwater Valley. Cole paused. He found me, Doc. Shit. The single word carried layers of understanding. Coincidence. You know better. Assessment. Cole appreciated Doc's shift to operational terminology, cutting through emotion to focus on practical realities. 7 confirmed yesterday. Intelligence suggests 30+ in the area. They want my land strategic position controlling valley access to wilderness corridor, reaching Canadian border. Viper recognized me partially but hasn't confirmed ID yet. Anticipate escalation within 72 hours. Assets, Doc asked. Limited, property secured, basic arsenal surveillance in place. Megan's trained but civilian. Local sheriff is former Marine but understaffed and jurisdiction bound. What do you need? Eyes, ears, and possibly hands, Cole answered. Can you get free? I'll take emergency leave. Can be there by nightfall. Doc paused. Anyone else in the loop? Reaching out to Ghost next. Thought about Hawk, but he's stationed overseas. Ghost is good. Steady hands. Doc was referring to Carlos Ghost Morales, their former demolitions expert, who now ran a motorcycle repair shop in Bozeman. I'll bring supplies, medical and otherwise. Appreciate it, brother. Shepard. Doc's voice turned serious. Viper was unhinged before prison. If he's carrying a grudge against you specifically— I know, Cole acknowledged. This isn't just business for him. Hold tight. We're coming. The call ended. Cole stared across the valley, weighing options. With Doc and potentially ghosting Root, their defensive posture would strengthen considerably. Both men brought specialized skills and combat experience that multiplied their effectiveness. The screen door opened behind him as Megan emerged dressed in work clothes, hair tied back. Doc's coming, Cole informed her. Tonight, I'll call Ghost next. Megan nodded. Good. I've been researching. She handed Cole her tablet displaying news articles about Scarlet Serpent's activities across the Northwest. They follow a pattern when moving into new territory. First, property acquisition, legitimate or coerced. Then infrastructure development, often disguised as renovation. Finally, recruitment of local talent for distribution. Drug running operation, Cole concluded. With a twist, Megan added, swiping to a geological survey map. I've been studying the historical records of this property. In the 1920s, during Prohibition, this farm was owned by the Callahan family. The bootleggers, Cole recalled, remembering the local history they'd learned when purchasing the property. Megan nodded. According to county archives, federal agents suspected the Callahans were running Canadian whiskey through this valley but never found evidence. I think I know why. She produced an aged, hand-drawn map. Found this hidden in the original deed packet. I dismissed it as an irrigation plan, but looked closely. Cole studied the yellowed paper. What appeared to be water lines at first glance revealed something more significant upon closer inspection, a tunnel system running from their property into the hillside extending several miles toward the Canadian border. A smuggling tunnel, Cole realized. Prohibition era, but still potentially serviceable. Exactly. The entrance would be somewhere on our property. Megan's eyes met his. Viper's research was thorough. He knows about this tunnel. That's why our land specifically is valuable to him. Cole's tactical assessment immediately shifted. A functional tunnel to Canada would be worth millions to a criminal organization allowing movement of drugs, weapons, and people across the international border without detection. We need to find that entrance before they do, Cole decided. The conversation paused as the rumble of a vehicle approaching caught their attention. Cole's hand instinctively reached for the sidearm concealed at his back, before recognizing Sheriff Davis's patrol SUV. Morning, Shepherds, Davis called, stepping from his vehicle. At 63, the sheriff moved with the deliberate economy of a man who'd spent decades in uniform. Thought I'd check in after yesterday's visitors. Cole and Megan exchanged glances. They'd need local law enforcement's cooperation, which meant sharing at least some information. Appreciate that, Sheriff, Cole replied. Coffee. 10 minutes later, the three sat at the kitchen table, Davis listening intently as Cole provided a carefully edited account of the Scarlet Serpent's visit and offer. $2 million cash is suspicious enough, Davis noted, but the veiled threats concern me more. Unfortunately, until they break actual laws, my options are limited. We understand, Megan assured him. We just wanted you aware of the situation. Davis studied Cole with narrowed eyes. Shepard, I've respected your privacy since you folks moved here. Never pressed about your background, but these Scarlet Serpents aren't typical troublemakers, and their interest in your specific property raises questions. Cole maintained a neutral expression, waiting. Davis leaned forward. 25 years as sheriff, 43 years since I left the Marines. I know the look of a man who's seen combat, heavy combat. The silence stretched between them until Davis continued. Gulf War 1991. I was a master sergeant with 1st Marine Division pushing into Kuwait. Our unit got pinned down by Republican Guard near the Bergen oil fields. Situation went sideways fast. Cole remained impassive, though a flicker of recognition crossed his features. Special operators extracted us, Davis continued. Young Army lieutenant led the team. Never got his full name, just his call sign. The sheriff's gaze locked with Cole's. They called him Sandman. Megan's eyes widened slightly as she glanced at her husband. Sandman had been Cole's call sign throughout his early career. "That was a long time ago, Sheriff," Cole finally said, neither confirming nor denying. Davis nodded. "Indeed it was. Point is, Shepard, I've got a pretty good idea what you did before becoming a farmer. Don't need details, but if these scarlet serpents are targeting you specifically, I need to know what my department is potentially walking into." Cole considered his options, then made a decision. Victor Reeves Viper served under my command in special operations. He committed war crimes. I testified against him. He went to prison. Davis absorbed this information with a grim nod. "And now he's found you with 30 armed bikers at his back." "That's our assessment. County resources are limited," Davis admitted. 3 deputies plus myself covering nearly 1,000 square miles. State police are an hour away at best. "We're not asking you to fight our battles," Cole clarified, "just to be aware and prepared if things escalate." Davis stood, settling his hat back on his head. "I'll increase patrols past your property in the Panery Motel. Can't arrest them for existing, but I can make sure they know we're watching." At the door, the sheriff paused. "Shepard Cole, for what it's worth, that night in Kuwait, you saved my life and the lives of 12 Marines. Whatever happens here, you've got my support." After Davis departed, Megan turned to Cole. "You never mentioned saving the sheriff's life." Cole shrugged. "Just doing my job. Didn't recognize him until now. He had a full head of red hair back then." Megan smiled, shaking her head. "My husband, the reluctant hero." Her expression turned serious. "We're gathering allies, but we're still outnumbered. What's our next move?" Cole checked his watch. "Doc arrives tonight. I'll reach out to Ghost now. Meanwhile, we need to locate that tunnel entrance. If it exists, it becomes either our vulnerability or our asset, depending who controls it." Megan nodded. I'll start with the old root cellar. Historical records suggest most bootleggers disguise tunnel entrances as ordinary farm structures." As they parted to begin their respective hikes, Cole felt the familiar calm that preceded combat operations. The clarity of purpose, the methodical preparation, the assessment of assets and liabilities. For 3 years, he'd been Cole Shepard, organic farmer, and quiet neighbor. Now Iron Cole was re-emerging, the tactician, the warrior, the protector. The transition should have troubled him more than it did. Instead, it felt like slipping into a well-worn uniform, uncomfortable in its familiarity, but necessary for the mission ahead. By mid-afternoon, the grim discovery in the North Pasture confirmed their situation had escalated. 5 prized Angus cattle lay slaughtered, their throats cut with professional precision. "Professional work," Cole noted, kneeling beside one of the animals. "Single incision severed carotid artery, and they disabled our sensor temporarily. They're demonstrating that they can penetrate our defenses without detection," Megan observed, "and cause economic damage." Cole nodded, his expression hardening. "First move in psychological warfare: demonstrate vulnerability, create uncertainty." He scanned the tree line 200 yards away. "They're watching our reaction right now." "Then let's not give them the satisfaction," Megan replied, her voice steady despite the disturbing scene. They documented the damage for insurance purposes, then moved the remaining herd to the south pasture farther from the property line and more easily monitored from the house. Neither spoke about the implied threat that what happened to the cattle could happen to them. In the kitchen, the team gathered around maps and intelligence reports. Doc had arrived 30 minutes earlier, his black F-250 loaded with medical supplies and equipment that wouldn't appear on any official inventory. At 48, Marcus Patterson remained physically imposing, broad-shouldered and fit, with close-cropped salt and pepper hair and the focused gaze of a combat medic who'd made life-or-death decisions in the world's worst environments. "We need to make a fundamental decision," Cole stated. "We have confirmation they're establishing operations in the area. We have evidence of criminal activity, property destruction, and clear intent to continue escalating. The conventional approach would be compiling evidence, contacting federal authorities, and letting law enforcement handle it," Doc pointed out. "That's the legal path, but ineffective in our time frame," Ghost replied from where he leaned against the kitchen counter. Carlos Ghost Morales had arrived just after Doc, his nondescript van belying the man's expertise. At 50, the former demolitions expert remained wiry and agile, his Hispanic heritage evident in his features, though his accent had long since faded through years of military service. Federal response would take weeks to coordinate. And Viper would still come for us personally, Doc added. This isn't just business for him. It's revenge. Option 2, Cole continued. We take offensive action. Disrupt their operation, destroy their equipment, force them to relocate. Vigilante justice, Doc noted, crossing a legal line even for the right reasons. Or option 3, we hold our ground, defend when attacked, and gather enough concrete evidence to force immediate federal intervention. After careful deliberation, they decided on a modified approach. Defend themselves with appropriate force. When directly threatened, gather actionable intelligence for law enforcement and conduct targeted disruption operations not to destroy the Scarlet Serpent's organization, but to delay implementation until authorities could respond. Their discussion was interrupted by the arrival of a single motorcycle, not an attack force, but a messenger. Michael Keegan, a heavily tattooed man with a shaved head, approached alone, his manner suggesting he'd served in the military, probably dishonorably discharged based on his association with the Serpents. Mr. and Mrs. Shepard, Keegan began, I bring a message from Viper. We're listening, Cole replied evenly. Keegan handed them an envelope. Viper says your property has sustained some unfortunate damage recently. He offers his sympathies. He also wants you to know that accidents tend to escalate. Today, cattle. Tomorrow, who knows, could be structures, could be people. Keegan's rehearsed delivery continued. Viper is a businessman. He prefers negotiation to conflict. His final offer is in that envelope, $3 million cash, 24 hours to decide. After that, he shrugged. Things get complicated. Viper also said to tell you he remembers Syria now. Says to ask if you remember the village. Says what happened there will seem merciful compared to what happens here if you refuse. After Keegan departed, Cole opened the envelope. Inside were surveillance images of their property from multiple angles, including thermal imaging showing the underground bunker. More disturbing were photos of Megan shopping in Riverford, Cole working with Jacob Wilson, and Doc's arrival at the farm. A handwritten note accompanied the images. I see everything. You have until noon tomorrow. After that, I take what's mine. Viper's bringing military-grade resources to this fight, Cole observed grimly. The message is clear. He's offering one last chance before bringing full force against us. That evening, Cole found Jacob Wilson waiting for him in the workshop, the boy's expression a mixture of determination and anxiety. I know something's wrong, Jacob said without preamble. Mom's been weird ever since I came back from here yesterday, and I saw those dead cattle when I rode my bike past your north pasture. Those bikers did it, didn't they? Cole considered his response carefully. At 16, Jacob wasn't a child, but he wasn't an adult either. The boy deserved honesty, but not exposure to unnecessary danger. We're dealing with some complicated people, Cole acknowledged. It's better if you stay clear for a while. Jacob's jaw set stubbornly. My dad didn't raise me to hide when things get tough. Your father would want you safe, Cole countered gently. Those bikers are all over town, Jacob continued, ignoring Cole's objection. Asking questions, watching people. Mom's scared, but she won't admit it. He pulled out a small notebook. I've been keeping track of them, where they go, who they talk to. There's at least 15 staying at the Pinnery Motel, but more coming in daily. License plates from Wyoming, Idaho, even Nevada. Cole stared at the boy, reassessing him. Jacob. I overheard something at the diner, Jacob interrupted. 2 of them talking about a lab setup and processing equipment coming in tomorrow night. Cole's expression remained neutral, but internally he recognized the tactical value of this intelligence. That's valuable information, Jacob, but this is getting dangerous. I don't want you putting yourself at risk. My dad died fighting for this country, Jacob replied with quiet determination. I can at least help protect our town. Cole recognized the resolve in the boy's eyes, the same look he'd seen in young soldiers determined to prove themselves. Denying Jacob would only push him to take more risks unsupervised. All right, Cole said finally. But we set boundaries. No direct contact with any serpents. You observe from safe distances only. You report everything to me or Sheriff Davis, no one else. And your mother has final say. If she tells you to stop, you stop. Deal. Jacob nodded solemnly. Deal. One more thing, Cole added. You carry this. He handed Jacob a small radio with a panic button. Emergency only. Press this and we'll come running. No questions asked. After Jacob left, Cole briefed the team on this new development. The boy's observant and motivated, he concluded. Better to channel that than have him freelancing. He's 16, Megan objected. We can't put him in danger. He's already decided to involve himself, Cole countered. This way we set the parameters, establish communication protocols, and keep him as safe as possible under the circumstances. I don't like it, Megan said, but I understand the logic. Later that afternoon, Megan drove into Riverford for supplies. Maintaining normal patterns was crucial to their operational security. Take the shotgun, Cole instructed, concealed under the seat, and stay on comms the entire time. In town, Megan noted subtle changes, unfamiliar motorcycles along side streets, strangers in leather vests observing from diner windows, locals moving with tense wariness. Inside Miller's General Store, two Scarlet Serpents members entered, positioning themselves to block the exit. As Megan approached the register, one of them, a heavily tattooed man with a shaved head, stepped into her path. Mrs. Shepherd, right, from the farm out by Clearwater Creek. That's right. Beautiful property. Viper speaks highly of it, says it's got potential. We like it just the way it is, Megan replied evenly. The biker smirked. Things change, ma'am, sometimes faster than expected. Outside, Megan noticed the bikers mounting their motorcycles, clearly intending to follow her. Sandman, this is Sierra, she said quietly into her concealed microphone, using their old operational call signs. I have two tails, proceeding with countermeasures. Instead of taking the direct route home, Megan executed predetermined maneuvers through Riverford's side streets. At the Riverford Community Church, Sheriff Davis's patrol SUV was strategically parked, causing the bikers to avoid following her there. They wanted you to know you were being followed, Cole commented when she returned safely, sending another message. While gathering intelligence on our response patterns, Megan added. That night, Cole and Ghost conducted reconnaissance on the delivery Jacob had reported. Through high-powered optics, they observed an unmarked panel truck arriving at the Pinery Motel. 6 Scarlet Serpents members unloaded large plastic containers and equipment. Laboratory equipment, Cole confirmed. Heating mantles, chemical storage ventilation systems, plus pharmaceutical manufacturing supplies. Synthetic opioid production, Ghost added. With the tunnel providing secure transport, they could produce millions in product weekly. While poisoning communities across the Northwest, Cole said grimly. This goes beyond Viper's vendetta against me. The following morning, Megan found Cole in the root cellar behind the farmhouse, examining the stone wall with methodical precision. I found it, she announced, directing his attention to a section of seemingly solid rock. The entrance to the tunnel, ingenious design, a pressure plate mechanism hidden behind this stone. She demonstrated pressing a specific stone and then turning it like a doorknob. A section of the wall slid aside, revealing a dark passage. Cole examined the opening with his flashlight. Remarkably well preserved, the timbers are old-growth cedar resistant to rot, approximately 6 feet high, 4 feet wide. They explored the tunnel together, finding it extended northwest, following natural cave formations in places with man-made sections connecting them. Based on the Prohibition-era map, Megan explained, it potentially runs 6 miles, emerging in the wilderness just south of the border. As they explored deeper, Cole noticed something disturbing: fresh boot prints in the dusty floor, cigarette butts, a candy wrapper, and a distinctive motorcycle key fob bearing the Scarlet Serpents insignia. They've already been here, Megan concluded, examining the evidence. Recently. Professional operators don't leave evidence like this, Cole observed. Either sloppy reconnaissance or deliberately left to send a message. Megan finished his thought. Cole nodded grimly. They're telling us they've already found what they came for. The offer to buy was just a formality. They expected rejection. So what's their next move? Escalation, Cole answered simply. First warning shots, property damage threats, intimidation, then direct confrontation if we don't yield. We need to know exactly what we're facing, Megan said. Numbers, weapons, positioning. Agreed. Tonight I'll conduct reconnaissance once we secure the farm. The town meeting at Riverford's community church that evening revealed deep divisions within the small community. Sheriff Davis had called the gathering to address growing concerns about the Scarlet Serpent's presence. The church's fellowship hall was packed with residents, unconsciously segregated farmers and ranchers clustered on one side, business owners, and newer residents on another. Megan and Doc attended while Cole and Ghost maintained property security. Davis called the meeting to order, his voice cutting through the murmured conversations. Folks, I called this meeting to address concerns about recent developments. As you're aware, we have visitors staying at the Pinery Motel, members of the Scarlet Serpents Motorcycle Club. While they have the right to visit our town, my office has received reports of intimidating behavior, property damage, and potential criminal activity. I want to be clear. Clearwater County Sheriff's Department will enforce the law, impartially protecting all citizens. When he opened the floor for comments, the community's division became immediately apparent. Frank Miller, the general store owner, stood first. Sheriff, these aren't ordinary visitors. My supplier in Missoula says the Scarlet Serpents are classified as a criminal organization by federal authorities. Harvey Collins rose from his seat. That's just rumor, Frank. They're spending good money in our businesses. Besides, this whole situation started because the Shepherds refused a generous offer for their property. Megan felt eyes turning toward her. The Shepherds have been good neighbors since arriving, Betty Wilson countered. If they don't want to sell their home, that's their right. Their right is putting all of us at risk, Collins responded. Last night there was some kind of confrontation out at their farm. Military tactics, according to what I heard. What exactly is Shepard's background anyway? Who are these people really? Megan stood, aware that her response would shape community perception. My husband and I came to Riverford seeking peace after his military service. Like many veterans, he values privacy regarding his service record. We purchased our farm, legally invested in this community, and have never brought trouble to anyone's doorstep. The trouble arrived when people who want our land wouldn't take no for an answer. They've killed our livestock, threatened our safety, and attempted to burn our home while we slept. If defending our property makes us problematic neighbors, I apologize, but I suspect many of you would do the same. Near the meeting's conclusion, Edward Harmon, a 73-year-old Vietnam veteran, rose shakily to his feet. I've listened to enough, he began, his gravelly voice commanding attention despite its softness. Some of you weren't here in '87 when the Sons of Silence tried establishing themselves in this valley. They started just like these Scarlet Serpents, offering money, making threats, promising economic benefits, while hiding their true business. We drove them out then because we stood together. Sheriff Michaels couldn't do it alone. Neither can Davis now. He turned toward Megan. The Shepherds shouldn't stand alone either. After the meeting, Harmon approached Megan privately, his weathered face betraying no emotion. Your husband was more than National Guard. I recognize the signs, the way he moves, the security measures at your property, the tactical response last night. Special operations, if I had to guess. Megan neither confirmed nor denied. Doesn't matter to me what unit, Harmon continued. What matters is you're facing trained opposition with limited resources. He gestured to a group of older men. Between us, we have 3 Purple Hearts, 2 Bronze Stars, and over 50 years of combined combat experience. Vietnam, mostly with some Desert Storm. You're offering assistance, Megan realized. Harmon nodded. 7 of us total, too old for direct action, but we know the valley better than anyone. Can provide intelligence, communication support, and strategic positioning. He pressed a folded note into her hand. Frequencies and rally points. We'll monitor and respond if needed. No acknowledgement necessary. Just know you're not alone. As Megan and Doc departed, they observed Scarlet Serpents representatives already reporting developments to Viper. The community division had been publicly displayed, identifying both allies and opponents. On the drive home, Doc noticed headlights behind them maintaining consistent distance regardless of their speed. We have a tail, he reported calmly. Megan and Doc diverted to a predetermined location where Ghost waited in concealed position. As their pursuers followed, they drove past markers indicating the property boundary, legally entering Shepherd land. The following vehicle, a black SUV with Scarlet Serpents insignia, suddenly found itself caught between Doc's truck and Ghost's position, headlights illuminating private property, no trespassing signs. Ghost emerged, photographer's camera in hand, rather than a weapon, documenting the trespass. The SUV reversed course, departing quickly rather than escalating the confrontation while being documented. They're probing our responses, Cole observed when they returned, testing our security protocols, our community support, and our defensive capabilities in planning their main assault. Based on community reaction, they know local sentiment won't prevent them from moving against us directly. Megan added. We implement Operation Firebreak, Cole decided, referring to their most aggressive contingency plan. Ghost and I will conduct forward disruption, while Doc and Megan maintain defensive positions here. The plan was audacious but calculated. Rather than waiting for Viper's forces to arrive at the farm, Cole and Ghost would conduct a limited strike against their staging area at the Pinnery Motel, disrupting coordination and sowing confusion before the main assault could organize. Rules of engagement remain unchanged, Cole emphasized. Non-lethal tactics prioritized. Our objective is disruption and delay, not direct confrontation. Moving through forested terrain with the silent efficiency of veteran operators, they covered the 6 miles to their objective in 47 minutes, arriving just as Viper's forces entered final preparation stages. 34 combatants, Cole whispered, observing through night vision optics. Mixed experience levels based on movement patterns. 12 vehicles total, 3 transport vans, remainder motorcycles, and personal vehicles. Viper is in the central building command and control position. Precisely at the predetermined moment, Cole disabled the motel's main electrical supply, plunging the entire complex into darkness. Simultaneously, Ghost deployed specialized electronic disruptors to the vehicle staging area, rendering ignition systems temporarily inoperable. From his concealed position, Cole observed Viper emerging from the command center, barking orders that went unheard through jammed communications. While Viper focused on restoring power and vehicle functionality, Ghost infiltrated the motel office where their radio base station had been established, rendering the equipment inoperable. As they withdrew into the darkness, Cole deployed their final countermeasure smoke dispensers, creating a thick visual barrier that further confused the defensive perimeter. Mission accomplished, Ghost confirmed as they retreated through the forest. Estimated recovery time minimum 4 hours before they can mobilize effectively. Back at the farm, they received an unexpected communication from Edward Harmon's veteran network. "Sandman, this is Watchdog," came the gravelly voice over the secure frequency Harmon had provided. "We observed your operation at the motel. Impressive work for a 2-man team. Appreciate the feedback, Watchdog. Situation assessment. Scarlet Serpent's in disarray, but Viper has dispatched scouts along multiple approach vectors to your property. Appears to be preparing for distributed infiltration rather than mass assault." The intelligence confirmed Cole's prediction, Viper adapting tactics based on their demonstrated capabilities. By mid-morning, the team had implemented their next phase of defense, a proactive operation targeting the drug manufacturing operation. Using intelligence gathered through surveillance and Keegan's cooperation, they had identified a storage facility in Riverford, where the laboratory equipment and chemical precursors were being temporarily housed. "If we neutralize the lab equipment," Cole explained, "we remove Viper's principal motivation for establishing operations here. Without production capability, the tunnel becomes significantly less valuable." At precisely 1:47 p.m., Ghost and Megan approached the storage facility through a delivery route that provided maximum concealment. Cole established an overwatch position with direct line of sight to all approach vectors. Inside, Megan worked methodically, introducing compounds to the precursor chemicals that would render them useless without changing their appearance. "Neutralization complete," she confirmed after 27 minutes. "These chemicals will yield nothing but inert compounds now." Ghost secured the facility behind them, restoring locks to their original condition with no indication of their presence. "Operation complete," Cole confirmed as they regrouped. "No detection, no pursuit objectives achieved." The strategic implications were significant. Without functional production capability, Viper's primary motivation for controlling the tunnel and surrounding territory diminished substantially. As evening approached, Harmon's observation network reported increased activity at the Pinnery Motel, vehicles undergoing final repairs, communications equipment replaced, and personnel reorganizing into operational units. "They're preparing to move," Ghost translated. "Estimated deployment time 2,200 hours. Full force multiple approach vectors. We've disrupted his operations and neutralized his production capability," Cole summarized. "Now we prepare for direct defense of the farm itself." As the team prepared for Viper's inevitable assault, Harmon's voice crackled through their secure communication channel with unexpected urgency. "Sandman, this is Watchdog, priority intelligence." "Go ahead, Watchdog." "Viper has altered operational plans, not proceeding to your location directly. Redirect confirmed." "What's their target?" "They've identified Megan as a primary vulnerability. Small team deploying to intercept her vehicle in town. Apparent objective capture for leverage against your position. What Viper couldn't know was that Megan was already secure at the farm rather than in town as his intelligence apparently suggested. Which creates an opportunity, Ghost observed. Their forces dividing based on incorrect information. If I appear to be in town following predictable patterns, Megan began, you become bait. Cole finished, his tone hardening. Not happening. A controlled encounter, Megan clarified, on our terms with our preparation and comprehensive overwatch. Draw out Viper's forward team, neutralize them, and create disarray in their command structure. The tension in the command center was palpable as Megan faced her husband across the tactical display. Cole, Megan began, her voice calm but resolute. This isn't an emotional decision. It's strategic. Viper has shifted his approach because direct confrontation failed. He's targeting me because he believes I'm your vulnerability. You are, Cole stated bluntly. No, Megan countered. I'm your strength, and it's time we use that to our advantage. After careful deliberation, Cole reluctantly approved Megan's plan with significant safety protocols. The operation would be detailed and precise. Megan would appear at Miller's General Store following her regular pattern, but with team members strategically positioned in throughout Riverford. As dawn broke over Clearwater Valley, the team conducted final equipment checks. Megan dressed in her normal town attire, practical jeans and flannel shirt, with concealed body armor and a communications earpiece disguised as a wireless headphone. Comms check, Cole instructed, testing the secure channel. Overwatch confirms, Doc responded from his position in the church bell tower. Blocking position established. Ghost added from his concealed location near the anticipated interception point. Mobile response ready, Cole confirmed from his position in a nondescript pickup truck. Megan took a deep breath. Sierra moving to Phase 1 position. The operation proceeded precisely as planned. Megan parked outside Miller's General Store at exactly 9:15 a.m. Within minutes, Harmon's observation network confirmed surveillance, 2 Scarlet Serpents members watching from separate positions. After completing her shopping, Megan emerged with supplies. The watchers immediately activated one, making a call while the other started his vehicle. Phase 1 complete, Megan murmured into her concealed microphone. Proceeding to Phase 2 position. Instead of taking her usual direct route home, Megan implemented a slight deviation, creating the appearance of routine variation while channeling her followers toward the predetermined interception area. Watcher 2 in pursuit, Harmon reported, maintaining 3-vehicle distance. Watcher 1 moving to parallel street, attempting to establish blocking position. The chosen interception zone appeared innocuous, a secluded stretch of road bordered by dense pines. In reality, the location had been carefully prepared overnight with concealed cameras, motion sensors, and pre-positioned equipment. As Megan's truck approached the turnout, she executed the next phase, pulling over, as if checking a text message, creating the opportunity her followers had been waiting for. Contact imminent, she reported quietly. 2 vehicles approaching black sedan plus unmarked van. The black sedan pulled alongside Megan's truck while the van blocked the road ahead. 3 men emerged, including Michael Keegan, Viper's lieutenant. Megan rolled down her window partway, presenting the appearance of confusion. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" Keegan approached with false casualness. "Mrs. Shepard, seems you have a flat tire. Need some help." "I don't have a flat," Megan replied. "You will in about 10 seconds. Keegan responded, producing a knife. "Step out of the vehicle, please. Someone wants to talk with you." Megan activated the prearranged signal, 3 quick taps on her steering wheel. "Execute containment," Cole commanded. Instantly, the tactical dynamics shifted. Keegan's companions found themselves illuminated by laser sights from Doc's overwatch position. Ghost emerged from concealed position behind them, the distinctive sound of a shotgun being racked cutting through the morning air. "Federal agents," Cole announced through an amplified speaker from his approaching vehicle. "Weapons down, hands visible." The claim of federal authority created critical hesitation among Viper's team. In that moment, Megan deployed her countermeasure, a specialized device that released targeted incapacitant spray through her partially open window. Keegan staggered back, unprepared for the defensive response. His companions immediately raised their hands in surrender. Within 30 seconds, all 3 Scarlet Serpents members were secured with zip ties, documentation of their kidnapping attempt, captured by multiple concealed cameras. Sheriff Davis and two deputies arrived to find three Scarlet Serpents members secured in comprehensive evidence of their kidnapping attempt. These three are facing serious charges with solid evidence, Davis observed. Viper's operation just lost key lieutenants. More significant than the arrest was the intelligence gathered. Keegan's phone contained communications with Viper detailing the broader operational plan. Viper had explicitly ordered Megan's capture for use as bargaining. This data reveals his current position. Ghost noted reviewing the encrypted messages. Abandoned ranger station in the national forest bordering our property. Viper has three remaining options. Cole analyzed. Abandon the operation entirely, accelerate the assault timeline, or attempt personal extraction. He'll come himself, Cole stated with certainty. Tonight with minimal support team, direct approach through the forest rather than the road network. At 2:17 a.m., the first sensor activated a subtle temperature variation detected by thermal imaging at the forest edge consistent with human presence. Contact northwest perimeter, Ghost reported quietly. Single thermal signature stationary. Likely reconnaissance position. For 37 minutes, the lone observer remained stationary, conducting methodical surveillance of the farmhouse. The team tracked this activity without response, allowing Viper's operation to develop. Second thermal signature approaching from same vector. Ghost updated. Moving to join the first position. Coordinating element, Cole interpreted. Observer reports to mission lead final reconnaissance before commitment. Three additional signatures detected maintaining disciplined interval approaching from northwest drainage channel. Total force 5 operators including Viper. Viper had abandoned large-scale operations in favor of a small, elite team, likely former military, with specialized training selected for a precision strike rather than overwhelming force. Implement countermeasure Echo, Cole instructed. Passive only, no active indicators. Countermeasure Echo represented their most sophisticated defensive protocol, a layered response designed to channel the approaching force into predetermined engagement areas without alerting them to the detection. After 43 minutes, Viper's team reached a tactical choke point where they would determine final approach vectors to the farmhouse. After 11 minutes of consultation, Viper's team separated two operators maintaining position while three advanced toward the farmhouse using slightly different approach vectors. Primary element approaching north entrance, Ghost reported. Secondary element holding at forest edge, likely providing overwatch and extraction support. Weapons identified, Cole reported. H&K MP5 SD suppressed submachine guns. Military grade rather than criminal standard. Confirming Viper as primary element lead, Ghost added. Positive identification. As Viper's team reached the final approach to the farmhouse, they encountered the first active countermeasure motion-activated lighting designed to appear as standard security features. Their response was professional, immediate pause assessment, then careful circumvention using alternate routes. At 3:47 a.m., Viper and his teammates reached the predetermined engagement threshold close enough to establish criminal intent through their weapons and approach, yet still contained within the optimal response zone. Execute containment protocol, Cole ordered calmly. Concealed LED arrays illuminated the entire approach area with disorienting light sequenced specifically to counter night vision equipment. Simultaneously pre-positioned speakers activated with a recorded message. Federal agents, you are surrounded. Drop your weapons and lie face down. The psychological impact was immediate and effective. Viper's secondary element sought cover, while the primary element responded with uncoordinated defensive positioning. In this moment of tactical confusion, the team executed their containment. Doc and Ghost deployed flashbang diversionary devices, creating disorientation without direct engagement. Megan activated the comprehensive camera network, documenting the entire encounter for subsequent legal proceedings. Victor, Cole called, using Viper's given name rather than his call sign. It's over. Federal response inbound. Your organization compromised. Your operation failed. Surrender now. Viper's response came in the form of immediate gunfire, 3 suppressed rounds fired with practiced precision toward Cole's voice. The shots impacted body armor rather than flesh. Still predictable, Victor, Cole commented as he shifted position. Always aggression, over-assessment. Shepard? Viper finally responded, his voice carrying cold fury. Should have known you'd be prepared. Always the perfect soldier, weren't you? This ends tonight, Cole stated firmly. Your choice how. Surrender to local authorities now or wait for federal tactical team in the morning. You think this is about the operation, the tunnel, the lab? Viper laughed bitterly. Those were just means to an end, Shepard. This was always about you. I know, Cole acknowledged. Your vengeance mission. Well, you found me, here I am. But you're not walking away this time. You testified against me, Viper continued, emotion breaking through his tactical discipline. 15 years of combat operations together and you chose strangers over your brother in arms. You murdered civilians, Cole countered calmly. Broke everything our oath stood for. The Brotherhood exists to hold each other accountable, not cover for war crimes. On war crimes, Viper spat the words. That's what you call making hard choices. The world isn't divided into good guys and bad guys, Shepard. I learned that in prison. There's just power and those too weak to use it. That's where you're wrong, Cole replied. There's still right and wrong. The uniform, the oath, they mean something. They have to, or what were we fighting for? You still believe in that fairy tale, Viper said, his voice a mixture of disgust and something like pity. All these years, and you haven't figured it out. The world abandoned those values long ago. I'm just being honest about it. Sheriff Davis's amplified voice replaced the recorded message. This is Sheriff Roger Davis, Clearwater County Sheriff's Department. You are surrounded by law enforcement officers. Drop your weapons immediately and surrender. For several tense moments, the outcome remained uncertain. Viper maintained his position, weapon ready, clearly calculating final options. Then with sudden clarity, Viper made his decision. In a burst of movement, he emerged from cover, weapon raised not toward Cole or the law enforcement perimeter, but toward the farmhouse where he believed Megan might be located. If I'm going down, I'm taking something valuable with me, he snarled, squeezing the trigger. Cole's response came from years of combat instinct. His own weapon fired once a precision shot that struck Viper's shoulder, disrupting his aim without inflicting fatal injury. Viper fell his weapon, discharging harmlessly into the ground. Within seconds, Sheriff Davis and his deputies secured the scene, providing medical attention while establishing official custody. Viper's support team, recognizing the operational collapse, surrendered without further resistance. As dawn broke over Clearwater Valley, the Shepherd farm returned to silence. Cole stood on the porch watching as the last sheriff's vehicles departed with their prisoners. Megan joined him, her expression reflecting the complex emotions of the encounter. It's over, she stated simply. Cole nodded, his arm drawing her close. Viper faces federal charges for attempted murder, kidnapping, weapons violations, and parole violation. His organization is dismantled. The tunnel remains our secret for now, and Clearwater Valley returns to peace. Doc and Ghost emerged from the house carrying their equipment toward Ghost's vehicle. Heading out, Cole asked. Ghost nodded. Operation complete. Time to disappear back into civilian life before federal teams start asking too many questions. Your names aren't in any reports, Cole assured them. As far as official documentation shows, local law enforcement responded to a home invasion attempt with no outside assistance. The men embraced briefly, the unspoken bond of operators who had faced combat together, requiring no elaborate farewells. Beautiful place you've built, dear, Doc observed, looking across the farm. Worth defending. Worth living for, Cole corrected gently, his arm still around Megan. As their former teammates departed, Cole and Megan remained on the porch watching the sun climb higher over Clearwater Valley. The property showed minimal evidence of the night's confrontation, a testament to their careful planning and controlled response. In the distance, the rumble of federal tactical vehicles approached, the FBI response finally arriving after the situation had been resolved through local resources. Perfect timing, Megan observed dryly. Show up after all the work is done. Cole laughed, the first genuine laugh since Viper's appearance had shattered their peaceful existence. Some things never change in military or civilian life. And whatever came next, federal investigations, community recovery, or personal healing, they would face it together just as they had faced every challenge since their paths first crossed. You're certain this is it? The FBI special agent in charge looked skeptical as he examined the entrance to the tunnel in the Shepherd's root cellar. 6 miles to the Canadian border, Cole confirmed. Used for bootlegging during Prohibition, then almost used for drug trafficking, today. And the Scarlet Serpents knew about this. That's why they targeted our property specifically, Megan explained. Strategic location controlling access to an unmonitored border crossing. The agent whistled softly. We'll need to map the entire tunnel, install monitoring equipment. This discovery has national security implications. Cole nodded, having anticipated this response. The tunnel's existence couldn't remain secret once federal authorities became involved, but at least it would be secured against criminal exploitation. As the agents descended into the tunnel with measuring equipment and cameras, Sheriff Davis pulled Cole aside. Thought you should know Viper's talking, trying to cut a deal, claims you executed civilians in Syria. Cole's expression remained neutral. Military investigation cleared me 15 years ago. All the records are classified, but they exist. Davis nodded. Figured as much. Just giving you a heads up. Desperate men say desperate things. I appreciate that, Sheriff. After the federal teams departed, promising to return with specialists, Cole found Megan in the garden methodically tending seedlings as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. You know they'll be crawling over our property for weeks, Cole said, kneeling beside her. Let them, Megan replied gently, pressing soil around a tomato seedling. Small price for peace of mind. Cole studied his wife's face, marveling at her resilience. How are you holding up, really? Megan paused, considering the question honestly. I've spent 12 years married to a Delta Force operator, Cole. Violence and danger aren't new concepts to me. She met his eyes. What's important is that we protected what matters, our home, each other, this community. Cole helped her with the seedlings, finding unexpected therapy in the simple act of nurturing life after the recent confrontation with death. You know what I realized during all this? Megan continued. The skills that made you exceptional in combat discipline, planning, situational awareness, are the same qualities that make you a good farmer, a good neighbor, a good man. She smiled, just applied differently. Cole considered this dirt under his fingernails instead of gunpowder residue. Maybe that's what transition is really about, not abandoning who you were, but redirecting those core attributes towards something constructive. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Jacob Wilson's pickup truck. The teenager approached cautiously, clearly uncertain of his welcome after recent events. Sheriff Davis told me everything was resolved, Jacob said. Thought I'd check if you still needed help with that tractor. Cole smiled, recognizing the boy's offer for what it was, a return to normalcy. Tractor's waiting in the barn. Those carburetors won't rebuild themselves. Later that evening, an unexpected visitor arrived, Edward Harmon, accompanied by several of his veteran network. They brought food tools and determined expressions that required no verbal explanation. Thought you might appreciate some help getting things back in order. Harmon explained, simply gesturing toward the assembled community members. Barn-raising tradition, Montana style. Many hands make light work. The spontaneous gathering transformed into an organized restoration effort, repairing damaged structures, clearing debris, and beginning the process of reclaiming the Shepherd farm from the disruption of recent events. As darkness fell, the volunteers gathered around a bonfire near the repaired barn. Someone produced a guitar, and soon the sounds of classic American folk songs filled the air. Cole watched from the periphery, a beer in hand, observing the community he'd feared might reject them. Harmon joined him, his weathered face illuminated by firelight. Town's talking about what happened. Most folks understand you were protecting more than just yourselves. And the others? Some people never want to acknowledge the wolves at the door. Harmon shrugged. Doesn't change the fact that someone has to stand guard. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, two soldiers from different wars finding common ground in the aftermath. That boy, Jacob, Harmon nodded toward where the teenager sat near the fire, animatedly describing something to younger children. He's been telling everyone how you taught him to rebuild engines, track deer. Says you're teaching him things his father would have. Just passing along what I know, Cole replied modestly. That's how we survive, son, Harmon said quietly. Not just by fighting when necessary, but by teaching the next generation what we've learned, the good and the bad. A week after the confrontation, a surprised Cole found Harvey Collins waiting nervously at the farm's entrance. The older man twisted his hat in his hands, his normally confident demeanor replaced by evident discomfort. Got a minute, Shepherd? Collins asked, unable to fully meet Cole's eyes. Cole gestured toward the porch where they sat in silence for a moment before Collins found his voice. I've come to apologize, he finally said. I sold you out to those bikers. Told them about your property, your background, your routine. Cole studied the man's face, seeing genuine remorse rather than mere self-preservation. Why play up this? Money at first, Collins admitted. Farms had been underwater since Martha's medical bills. They offered $20,000 just for information. He sighed heavily. Then it became about fear. Once I realized what I'd done, who they were, I was scared to back out. Why tell me this now? Cole asked. The threat's contained. You could have kept quiet. Collins shook his head. Keeping quiet is what God is here. I need to make it right. He reached into his pocket and produced a folded paper. They paid me to watch your place, report your movements. This is everything I told them. Schedules, visitors, security I could see. Thought you should know what they know. Cole accepted the document, recognizing that Collins's confession took significant courage. I'll be selling my land, Collins continued, moving to Arizona to be near my daughter. Before I go, I wanted to make sure you knew I was sorry. Really sorry. Cole considered the man before him not evil, just a struggling neighbor who'd made a terrible choice and now sought redemption. Water under the bridge, Cole said, finally extending his hand. We all make mistakes. It's what we do after that counts. The relief on Collins' face spoke volumes as he shook Cole's hand. You're a better man than I deserve, Shepard. Just trying to be the kind of neighbor I'd want, Cole replied. 3 months after Viper's attack on the Shepard farm, Clearwater Valley had largely returned to normal rhythms. Cattle grazing peacefully in summer pastures, crops flourishing in fertile soil and daily life, proceeding with the measured pace that characterized rural Montana. The Shepard farmhouse had been repaired and improved during community restoration efforts. The original structures maintained while incorporating enhanced security features disguised within traditional architectural elements. Megan's organic gardens had been replanted with expanded variety, now including medicinal herbs and rare heirloom vegetables. Cole had accepted Sheriff Davis's offer to serve as volunteer deputy with specialized training responsibilities, formalizing the leadership role he had demonstrated during the crisis while maintaining boundaries that preserved his privacy and primary identity as a farmer rather than law enforcement officer. The property's most significant addition stood near the old workshop, a modest building that served multiple purposes. On paper, it was an agricultural education center where Megan could conduct workshops on organic farming techniques. In practice, it also functioned as a community gathering place and discreetly a training facility where Cole shared basic self-defense and emergency preparedness skills with interested locals. The Shepard Farm had become a gathering place for community events, from practical workshops on agricultural techniques to informal social gatherings that strengthened connections between longtime residents and newer arrivals. On this particular summer evening, the farm hosted a celebration that marked both seasonal milestone and deeper commemoration, a harvest barbecue that doubled as remembrance of the community's unified response 3 months earlier. Picnic tables scattered across the expansive front yard accommodated dozens of local families, while music from local musicians provided authentic soundtrack to the gathering. Sheriff Davis flipped burgers on a massive grill, his deputy's badge gleaming in the sunlight. Harvey Collins, who had publicly apologized for his initial opposition before leaving town, had donated homemade apple cider from his orchard as a parting gesture. Across the yard, Megan conducted an impromptu workshop on organic pest management techniques, surrounded by interested community members. Jacob Wilson assisted, confidently explaining beneficial insect relationships to younger children. The teenager had become a regular presence at the Shepard Farm, apprenticing with Cole on mechanical projects and learning agricultural techniques from Megan. As evening deepened toward night, the celebration gradually transitioned to its concluding phase. Local musicians gathered near the campfire instruments, emerging for impromptu performance that reflected authentic Montana tradition rather than manufactured entertainment. When the opening notes of Lynyrd Skynyrd's Simple Man emerged from acoustic guitars, the significance resonated particularly with the veterans present. The 1973 classic's message about values, integrity, and meaningful life, speaking directly to men who had experienced combat's complexity and sought peace without surrendering purpose. Cole found Megan at the gathering's edge, both observing the celebration with shared appreciation for what it represented, not just recovery from crisis, but affirmation of the life they had deliberately chosen together. Worth defending, Cole stated quietly, echoing Doc's observation from the night Viper's threat had finally ended. Worth building. Megan amended her perspective, characteristically focused on creation, rather than protection, the constructive complement to Cole's defensive instincts that had balanced their partnership from the beginning. As the gathering gradually dispersed, Cole and Megan remained on their porch, watching taillights disappear down the gravel drive that had once witnessed Viper's threatening arrival and now carried friends returning to their own homes throughout Clearwater Valley. 3 days later, Jacob arrived for his regular apprenticeship session to find Cole establishing foundation for a new structure adjacent to the existing workshop. "What are we building?" Jacob inquired directly, curiosity overcoming his usual deference to Cole's guidance. "Training center," Cole explained, indicating the architectural plan spread across a nearby workbench. "Classroom space for Megan's agricultural workshops, multi-purpose area for community gatherings, and dedicated section for specialized instruction." By harvest season, the facility stood complete physical manifestation of the Shepherd Farm's evolution from private sanctuary to community resource. The inaugural workshop series, focusing on sustainable agricultural techniques for Montana's challenging climate, attracted participants from throughout Clearwater County and neighboring regions. As winter approached, bringing Montana's characteristic snowfall and quieter rhythms, Cole and Megan stood on their porch watching evening light fade behind distant mountains. The completed training center, the flourishing farm operations, and the strengthened community connections represented outcome entirely different from what Viper had intended when targeting their property. "Not what we planned when we bought this place," Cole observed. "Better," she replied, completing their shared assessment with the simple word that encompassed complex reality. Their exchange captured essential truth about their journey from seeking isolated sanctuary to creating connected community that enhanced rather than compromised their values. The peace they had originally sought hadn't come through escape from their past lives, but through their integration into something meaningful, a partnership and purpose worth defending. As darkness settled completely over Clearwater Valley, lights from scattered farmhouses twinkled across the landscape like earthbound stars, each representing families and lives interconnected through the recent challenges they'd faced together. Megan leaned against Cole's shoulder, her voice thoughtful in the gathering darkness. "Remember what Viper said during the confrontation, that the difference between you two was that you still believed in a world with moral clarity?" Cole nodded, recalling the bitter exchange during those tense moments. "He was right," Megan continued, "but not in the way he meant. The clarity isn't about simplistic divisions between good and evil. It's about choosing to build rather than destroy, to protect rather than dominate, to connect rather than isolate." Cole's arm tightened around her shoulders, acknowledging the profound truth in her assessment. Their life in Clearwater Valley embodied these choices, decisions made daily through actions both large and small that affirmed constructive values over destructive impulses. "Iron Cole," Megan murmured with gentle humor, using the call sign that had once defined his operational reputation. "Turns out you're pretty good at building peace, not just winning wars." As they turned to enter their farmhouse, restored, strengthened, and truly theirs in ways that transcended mere ownership, the distant sound of coyotes echoed across the valley. The wild calls seemed fitting accompaniment to this final moment of reflection, nature's reminder that challenges would always exist in this rugged landscape, but that life continued, adapted, and flourished nonetheless. From the distant hillside overlooking the Shepherd Farm, a lone figure watched the warm light spilling from the farmhouse windows. His weathered face reflected the mixture of pride and melancholy that often accompanies witnessing something beautiful from the outside. Doc Patterson lowered his binoculars, satisfied that his final check on his former teammate revealed exactly what he'd hoped to see, not just survival, but genuine thriving. Turning to his truck, he dialed a number few people possessed. "They're good," he reported simply. "Really good." Ghost's voice came through the secure line. "Never doubted it, not with those two." Heading back. "Yeah, I just needed to be sure." "Roger that. Safe travels, brother." Doc hung up, casting one last glance at the Shepherd Farm, a light in the darkness, a sanctuary built through courage and principle rather than retreat and compromise. The kind of place that reminded a man what was worth fighting for. Just before driving away, Doc noticed movement near the farmhouse door, Cole emerging onto the porch, scanning the darkness with the practiced vigilance that never fully leaves a warrior. For a moment, it seemed their eyes met across the impossible distance. Doc raised his hand in a silent salute before slipping away into the Montana night. Some bonds, like some values, transcend time and distance. The code they'd lived by in combat, never leave anyone behind, remained unbroken in peace.